That's my clunky transition to the next part. So the impact of the digital frontier, that new media and new technologies on the new American literature. And once again, it challenges both form and content. The new technologies and the ubiquity of them, I mean, I've got an iPad here, you know, I can get out my phone, we've all got them in our pockets, right? Create new venues and new possibilities for narrative and for distribution. And along with that, new complexities and new consequences, not least of which is, you know, the publishing industry. I have a little sort of blurry shot of a Kindle right there. The sort of e-book revolution, if you will, changes a great deal when we start to consider what stories are out there, what stories people are reading, what stories people consider good stories or not. I mean, if that question even holds water in an era where more and more people are actually publishing. Because self-publishing through the Kindle store or otherwise becomes the new kind of vanity press. I can write something and publish it and put it up for sale. No middleman, right? No arbiter of taste telling me what should count and what should not. Whether that's fan fiction through the Kindle World Store or just an original narrative that I've come up with, I have a venue now that's very accessible and very easy. And once again, this is something that's not just a small fragment. It's a growing fragment, and it's something that the publishing world has had to contend with in new ways. Just to give you some context for this, so 2011 was really the first year this started to really tick up. And in 2011, on the Amazon ebook store, so and Amazon remains the largest distributor of electronic fiction, right? 18 of the top 100 books sold on the Amazon ebook store were self-published books. And of those 18, one reached as high as number 9 in 2011. The number 9 top-selling electronic book on Amazon, I haven't read it, but it's called The Mill River Recluse, and it's by a woman named Darcy Chan. Number 9, put that in context. Number 1 that year was The Help. Numbers 2, 3, and 4 were the Hunger Games trilogy. And numbers 7, 8, and 12 were the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy. And right in the middle of that, number 9, was just some woman who decided she had a book and she wanted to publish it. Number 9 top-selling book on the Amazon ebook store in 2011. That changes things a lot. And it changes things obviously for publishers, right? How do we get our piece of the pie? Because the old model, of course, you maybe got a publisher interested, and even if you had a publisher interested, you had to then get the book critics involved, right? Maybe if you were lucky, you got signed up with one of the Book of the Month clubs. There's a selection, right? That's really how you got attention, got readers. Who needs any of that, right? Put it on there, get some 5-star reviews, and people will start reading, right? It's a very different model. But even for us, for readers, for teachers, for scholars, it raises new questions as the kind of writing proliferates. And there are people in the room that have published through the Kindle store, I know this. How do we find, quote unquote, the next Toni Morrison, the next Mark Twain, amid the proliferation? Is that even a valid question? Do we still need an arbiter to say, this is the Toni Morrison, this is the Mark Twain? And it shakes things up, and it shakes up our conceptions. And this new technology, again, as I said, it's not just about new delivery methods. The technology goes far beyond just, e-ink. As the technology allows us and we move from a simple e-reader to something like this, new forms begin to emerge, right? New possibilities begin to emerge. And some of those, as with the mashup literature, are more for fun than anything, but they do open up interesting possibilities. So, for instance, Ophelia joined the group Maidens Who Don't Float. Classic Lit signs on to Facebook. This is a book, and I'll pass it around. I have a copy of it here with some of my favorites marked in there, where the writer, Sarah Schmeling, takes, again, classic literature and filters it through social media, right? She turns it in. You've got Holden Caulfield's Facebook profile on there. You have Ernest Hemingway taking the Who's a Real Man quiz. Of course, the joke here being Ophelia joined the group Maidens Who Don't Float. Ophelia drowns in Hamlet. You have Hester Prynne received a piece of flair. Right? Edgar Allan Poe will not stop looking at you that way. Ernest Hemingway took the Are You a Real Man quiz. And Virginia Woolf is afraid of Edward Albee. That one's a little more complex. Edward Albee wrote the play Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? But there's whole examples of that. And again, kind of a novelty, but again, how do we read literature in a different way in this era of new media and technology? I have an example, one of the more famous ones from this book, Hamlet. This is just an excerpt. The king poked the queen poked the king back. Hamlet and the queen are no longer friends. Marcellus is pretty sure something's rotten around here. Hamlet became a fan of daggers. Rosencrantz, Guildenstern, and Hamlet are now friends. Hamlet wonders if he should continue to exist, or not. Hamlet thinks Ophelia might be happier in a convent. Ophelia removed moody princes from her list of interests. Hamlet posted an event, a play that's totally fictional and in no way about my family. The king commented on Hamlet's play. What is wrong with you? Polonius thinks this curtain looks like a good thing to hide behind. Polonius is no longer online. The queen is worried about Ophelia. Ophelia joined the group of maidens who don't float. Horatio says, well, that was tragic. Fortinbras, Prince of Norway, says, yes, tragic. We'll take it from here. Denmark is now Norwegian. So again, a lot of fun, but as I might talk about later, it opens up new possibilities as we think about, as future teachers perhaps, how to get students engaged and think about literature. Because this is funny, but you think about what's on here, and it's really you have to start with an understanding of the play and the play's events in order to do something like this, right? Opens up perhaps new possibilities. A very more contemporary example of something like this, just last November, the book Texts from Jane Eyre premiered. Some people may have seen it. I actually have an excerpt on here. It's Texts from Jane Eyre and Other Conversations with Your Favorite Literary Characters. And I pulled this off the website. It's got the contents on it, but it's also got an example from the Odyssey, from Circe, some of her text messages to Odysseus. But this also, a bestseller, just came out in November of 2014, and you start to see it everywhere. And again, a novelty, perhaps. It's from the editor, Mallory Ortberg. She's the editor of The Toast, if people ever go on her website. But again, thinking about classic literature, thinking about these things in ways that filter it through what, for many of us, is now our everyday life, right? Whether that's Twitter or Facebook or text messaging, a new way of seeing these texts. Another example, which I will talk a little bit more about later, it made it onto the poster. The new phrase being, it's not my favorite phrase in the world, but it is evocative, Twitterature. Same thing, either reimagining classic texts through the medium of Twitter or writing new texts through the medium of Twitter. And just for those of you who might be fans, I think it's now the fifth annual Twitter Fiction Festival begins May 11th, right? So just a couple months away, and runs for 5 days, and invites anybody to create literature through Twitter, but also invites prominent authors to do the same. This year, as part of the Twitter Fiction Festival, Margaret Atwood will participate, Lemony Snicket will participate, several others. So again, something going on here, right? Maybe novelty, maybe not. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Beyond the novelty aspect, though, a lot of writers, a lot of coders, a lot of creators, even if those things now no longer are distinct, have started to reimagine and reinvent literature thanks to the new possibilities with this media. Beyond just, for instance, with apps, right? Beyond just the app, the Poem a Day apps, or more and more literary journals and stuff are having apps or going online, magazines, people are more familiar with that. You also get people using the interactive capacity of applications of tablet computing to engage with literature in new ways. One of the earliest examples of this, and you can see the price of it is kind of up there for an app, is T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. And many people know this is sort of a cornerstone of, well, depending on where you fall, either American literature or British literature. But this app, actually, you can see some shots here. You see some manuscript pages that are marked up. There's videos from Nobel Prize winner Seamus Heaney talking about his favorite passages. There's sort of interactive annotations on the poem to help people understand it more, to get more out of it. Here again, you see annotations on the poems. It's a deeply elusive text, and so lots of things to footnote. And this app sort of puts it all in the palm of your hands with extra resources. For most of us, on a more fun level, there's texts like Space Dog Books' reimagining of Treasure Island. Now, this is significant because this is actually the full text of Treasure Island. It's also in the public domain, right? So they created an app where, especially aimed at children, where kids can read Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. But they add the elements that the new technology makes possible. And the description, I've just made it big for you. Set sail on a classic adventure in a brand new way. Voyage to Skeleton Island by tapping, rotating, swiping, and shaking to interact with beautiful illustrations, rich soundscapes, and compelling animations. You'll find surprises at every turn in this re-envisioned classic Robert Louis Stevenson tale that's neither movie nor game, but an enrichment of the magic of traditional book arts. Feel the suspense and excitement jump off the page with illustrations by internationally acclaimed artist Matthew Cruikshank, and listen to original music and voice acting breathe life into Long John Silver and his band of pirates. It is the full text. This is reading for the person who might be reading this for the first time, the child, right? But it has video illustrations. It has original music. It has static illustrations as well. But something that fundamentally changes the reading experience of this text that's been around for over a century. Right? Taking opportunities. And others have gotten into the game, even J.K. Rowling, as we know, who's credited with reinvigorating reading among a whole generation of youths. She gives us Pottermore, right? Which is a whole series of things set up for people and encouraging readers to actually go through and read the text of Harry Potter, chapter by chapter, but with sort of the literary equivalent of DVD extras. You can go on to Pottermore, and starting in different chapters, there's different games. You can be sorted, of course, and different things. Now, through Pottermore, over the last year or so, she started to release original expansion pieces. Harry Potter goes to the World Cup, things like that. But again, even the woman who's credited with reinvigorating reading has started to reinvent her own text, right? Adding these more interactive elements. And this new possibilities also lend for original works of storytelling first. And I pick one example of this. This is, some people, I don't know, has anybody in here played Device 6? Well, you've played it, yes, I know. This came out in October 2013 on the App Store, and it was selected as one of the editor's choice. So, it appears up at the top of Apple's App Store and everything like that. But it's a fascinating sort of hybrid, because it's very much a text-based game. You read this, but there's elements of it that are game-like. And, well, I'll give you a hint here. This is meant to be played not necessarily on your tablet, but on your phone, right? So the text, you begin reading, and Anna is the main character. And it's a kind of, if you imagine Alfred Hitchcock style, it's 1960s style thriller. This woman, Anna, wakes up in a room, and she doesn't know where she's at. She doesn't understand, and you follow her narration as she walks. She leaves the room, and she's kind of in a tower. And as you read her walking down the stairs, you have to turn the phone. The text actually turns the corners as well. And along the way, she hears sounds, and the sounds are part of the thing. So you start to hear the sounds as well. And there's certain puzzles that she has to figure out to figure out where she's at or get out of a room. You have to figure them out. And it locks you in to chapters until you solve the puzzles. It's very much a reading experience. But is it a book? Is it a game? It's this new kind of blending of both. And it introduces new possibilities.